What if I told you that the entire multi-billion-dollar world of esports that we know today can be traced back to just one game? We're about to dig into the history of StarCraft and uncover three moments, three critical turning points that didn't just define a game, they literally built the foundation for professional competitive gaming. Let's get right into it.
But okay, let's just pause for a second. A historical analysis of a video game? I know what some of you might be thinking. Why are we treating this with the same seriousness as, say, a pivotal season in a traditional sport? It's a fair question, and honestly, the answer is what makes this story so incredible. Because what blew up in South Korea around the turn of the millennium wasn't just a popular game. It was the birth of an entire professional industry built from the ground up around a single title, StarCraft BroodWar, which came out way back in 1998. This game didn't just start a trend, it basically wrote the rulebook for modern esports as we know it.
You know, you often hear the legendary player Boxer called the father of pro gaming, and that's fair. But I think there's a better way to look at it. StarCraft itself was the mother. The game's incredible depth and its near-perfect balance created this perfect environment, an ecosystem where a pro scene could not just exist, but absolutely explode.
And man, what an ecosystem it was. We're not talking about a couple of people in a basement. This was a full-on professional machine managed by the Korean Esports Association, or KASPA. Think about it, major broadcast deals on national TV, players earning actual salaries, living and training together in dedicated team houses, and playing for a TV audience of millions. Nothing like it had ever existed before.
All right, let's dive into our first act. The year is 2004. This is the exact moment the world realized a fundamental truth. People didn't just want to play StarCraft, they would come in droves to watch it. This is the story of how esports became a real spectacle.
Okay, just look at this number. This right here is what it's all about. In 2004, a StarCraft tournament final had a television audience that was reportedly 25% larger than the audience for the 2002 World Cup semifinal. And just to be clear, that World Cup match featured South Korea's own national team. That tells you everything. StarCraft wasn't some niche hobby, it was a mainstream cultural event.
So, the match at the very heart of this cultural explosion was the semifinal of the Ever Star League, and it was between two absolute legends, Lim Yo-hwan, better known as Slayer's Boxer, the Emperor, and Hong Jin-ho, known as Yellow, the Storm Zerg, a classic Terran versus Zerg grudge match.
So, what was Boxer's weapon of choice? This insane strategy called the 8 Racks Bunker Rush. It's a total high-wire act. You basically sacrifice your own economy to build an army barracks way too early. Then you march your construction workers across the map with your very first soldiers to build a fortress right at your opponent's front door. It's a huge gamble. You either win in the first few minutes or you lose spectacularly.
And this is what made it legendary. Boxer didn't just win. He demolished one of the best players in the world 3 games to none. And he did it by pulling off that same crazy all-in strategy 3 times in a row. The sheer guts to do that is just stunning. He wasn't just outplaying Yellow, he was getting inside his head, out-thinking him on a level nobody had ever seen before. And that is what made it a turning point. The drama, the rivalry, the pure audacity of it all, that's what pulled in millions of viewers. This one single match proved that a huge audience for pro gaming wasn't just some fantasy. It was already there, just waiting. This was the birth of esports as a true spectator sport.
Now, let's get to Act 2. This turning point isn't about some triumphant victory. It's a crisis. It's about what happens when a game feels like it's been figured out, when one strategy becomes so dominant that it threatens to make the entire sport, well, kind of boring. This is the problem of the solved game.
And this crisis had a name, Ma Jae-yoon, way better known as Savior. His nickname was the Maestro. And from 2005 to 2006, he conducted the game with a terrifying, beautiful level of perfection. He was a Zerg player, and for a long time he seemed absolutely unbeatable. His dominance was just so complete, especially against the Protoss race, that this dark cloud started to form over the pro scene. The feeling was that the matchup wasn't just hard for Protoss, it felt fundamentally broken, structurally unwinnable at the highest level. It seemed like Savior had solved this part of the game.
And here's the key difference. Savior wasn't winning with wild, creative new strategies like Boxer did. He was winning through methodical, flawless execution of an already established style. And that's what made it so scary. See, when someone is just perfect, You stop trying to beat the player, and you start to believe the strategy itself is unbeatable. It really felt like the game had just hit a wall.
And that was a huge threat to the sport. I mean, seriously, think about it. If a game can be solved, if there are no new ideas left to find, why would you keep watching? What happens to a sport when you feel like you already know how the story ends? For a while there, it looked like StarCraft just had no answer.
But then, in our third and final act, the game answered back. The year is 2007. The story shifts from this crisis of perfection to a thunderous revolution of ideas. It turns out the game wasn't solved at all. The whole community, they were just asking the wrong questions.
So the stage is set, the GOM-TV MSL Season 1 final. On one side, the unbeatable champion, Savior, the Maestro. On the other, a Protoss player named Bisu, who was seen as a massive underdog. The result was one of the single most shocking upsets in esports history. A clean sweep. Bisu didn't just beat the Maestro. He dismantled him, 3-0.
So how did he do it? With a revolutionary new strategy that came to be known as the Bisu build. Instead of trying to meet Savior's perfect execution head-on, which was impossible, Bisu attacked his opponent's core assumptions. First, he used fast Corsair air units to hunt down Savior's scouting overlords, completely blinding him. Then, while Savior was blind, he attacked with invisible Dark Templar units, forcing total panic and shattering the Zerg's optimized build order. This unit, the Dark Templar, was the key that unlocked everything. It was like throwing a wrench into Savior's perfectly tuned machine. It forced him to react, to spend money on detection that his optimized system hadn't planned for, throwing his entire game into chaos. Bisu wasn't playing Savior's game better, he was forcing Savior to play a brand new game, one he had no script for.
And the shockwaves from this match were just enormous. This wasn't just one player winning one tournament. Bisu's strategy blew the doors wide open. It introduced a whole new school of thought to the matchup. It was a complete paradigm shift that re-energized every Protoss player on the planet and proved that this game was infinitely deeper and more complex than anyone had ever imagined.
So there you have it. 3 acts, 3 massive turning points. In 2004, the Boxer-Yellow rivalry proved that a huge audience was ready for esports as a spectacle. In 2006, Savior's reign of perfection created a crisis, threatening the game with stagnation. And in 2007, the Bisu revolution proved that no game this deep is ever truly solved.
And that really leaves us with one final, powerful idea, right? Bisu's revolution teaches us a lesson that goes so far beyond just gaming. When any system seems perfected, when any problem feels completely figured out, is it really the end of the line? Or is it maybe just waiting for one person, somewhere, to ask a new question and change the game forever? Thanks for watching.